Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to our fourth edition of our Women in Chester County Blueprint Lunch Series. For those who don't know me, my name is Blake Emanuel, and I'm the Program and Advocacy Manager here at the Fund for Women and Girls, a nonprofit in Chester County. I'm joined today by Carrie Stair and Drew Boardman from the LGBT Equality Alliance for a presentation in celebration of Pride Month. We're going to discuss the past, present, and future of Pride in Chester County and beyond. We're excited that you all could join us today and look forward to lunching and learning together. We're going to discuss, as I mentioned, the past, present, and future of Pride. We're also going to discuss the Fund's Blueprint Report. For those who aren't familiar, the Blueprint Report is done by the Fund for Women and Girls every 5 years and reviews data that is relevant to women and girls in Chester County and beyond. This includes LGBTQIA+ individuals and different subcategories such as education, healthcare, economic status, etc. And then we're going to conclude with what can we do to assist and questions. So if you have any questions, you can please at any point enter them in the Q&A section, and I will read them aloud to our presenters. I also have added in the chat section a survey, if you wouldn't mind, 3 short questions. We're just trying to improve our outreach and networking, and that would be really appreciated if you could fill that out. As I mentioned, this is all in support of our Blueprint Report. It's our 4th edition. Our first edition was in 2005, and we continue to monitor the data. This Blueprint Report, while only a year old, I will note, unfortunately with data, it can become old pretty quickly. So a lot of this data was pre-COVID data. Keep that in mind. We're also going to be looking into interim reports, especially in areas that we identify we need additional information. So for example, we're going to be doing an interim report on race and gender equity, because unfortunately there is not a lot of disaggregation of that information, especially at the local level. And so at this point, I would like to turn it over to Carrie and Drew for a presentation on Pride in Chester County.
Awesome. I appreciate it, Blake. Thank you so much for having us today. My name is Carrie Stair. I am president of LGBT Equality Alliance of Chester County, and I've got Drew here with me as well. Drew, if you want to introduce yourself.
Yes, absolutely. I am Drew Boardman, and I am the vice president of the LGBT Equality Alliance of Chester County. Thank you so much for having us today.
All right. So today we're going to take you through a little bit of the past, present, and future of what Pride has been, is currently, and what we hope for it to be in Chester County. So a little bit about the Equality Alliance. We are a 501c3 nonprofit, and we aim to remove barriers of communication between the Chester County LGBTQ+ residents and the greater Chester County community at large. And it's our focus to unify the greater community so that all LGBTQ+ community members can feel safe and supported in their living environment. Our mission is to foster inclusivity, well-being, and social justice for the LGBTQ+ community through advocacy and the provision of those safe, supported spaces. And our vision is to strive to become a local thought leader for issues affecting the LGBTQ+ community. And we envision addressing human rights issues by advocating for societal change to protect the physical, mental, and emotional well-being of our community. And then a little bit of the history of the LGBTQ+ community. So we'll start off with a little bit of history about the Equality Alliance. The Equality Alliance was started as tea dances in January of 2015 by our founding president, Rachel Stevenson. She sought to revive the LGBTQ+ social scene that had thrived in Phoenixville from 2001 to 2009 at the little gay bar called Frank Jeffries. And once it closed, it created a gap, and Rachel sought to close that gap and bring it back. So the tea dances were how it started. And within 3 months, it became very clear, very apparent that these tea dances, they were more than just social events. It was a need for providing services for the LGBTQ plus community in Chester County. And so building off of the momentum of the tea dances, Rachel and a few of the original board members successfully transformed tea dances into a 501c3 nonprofit with our original name, LGBTEA Dances, which was born in March of 2015. And then in July of 2016, just over a year later, with how successful the organization had become with the growth and expansion, we officially changed our name to LGBT Equality Alliance of Chester County. And we took the role as the leading LGBTQ plus focused nonprofit organization, not just in Chester County, but really in the Western Philadelphia suburbs, in the areas of health, education, advocacy, outreach, and community partnership. And it would be amiss if I did not say that we wouldn't be here today if it weren't for Frank, Jeffrey, and Bill Davidson. They were the three crusaders of early Pride in Chester County. They held the very first Pride in Chester County in 2005 in Phoenixville at the Foundry, before it was really still even safe to be out and celebrating. So I just wanted to give them a little nod. Unfortunately, we lost Bill Davidson earlier this year, and it's our honor to continue on his legacy, Frank's legacy, and Jeff's legacy. And then some notable moments in LGBTQ plus history. Now, what you may not know is before Stonewall, there was something called annual reminder days, and they were held every July 4th from 1965 to 1969, right in front of Independence Hall in Philadelphia. And this was a goal of the LGBTQ plus community to make themselves seen. And at that point, it was actually very dangerous to do so, because had they been recorded or arrested or photographed, they could have lost their jobs, because at that point, it was illegal to be gay, out gay person, and be in a job. So just a little bit of local history there. And then on June 27th, 1969, the Stonewall Uprising occurred at the Stonewall Inn in New York City. It was that evening that the LGBTQ plus community just got fed up, sick and tired of constantly being harassed by the police, constantly being persecuted and arrested just for being who they are. And you could be arrested for something as simple as not wearing 3 articles of your own gender's clothing. So the drag queens and the transgender community were really they really spearheaded the Stonewall Uprising. And if you haven't heard of them, please look them up. Marsha P. Johnson, Sylvia Rivera, they were 2 of the people that really led the Stonewall Uprising, and it lasted for 3 days. So the community fought back, and we fought back hard. And in honor of that uprising, in June 1970, the very first Pride celebrations were held in honor of the 1-year anniversary of the Stonewall Uprising. They occurred out in Los Angeles, San Francisco, and New York City. And then I'm going to fast forward a little bit, because between 1970 and 2003, there was just way too much that happened in the LGBTQ plus community to fit on just one slide. But I wanted to show some history that isn't that old. It was only 20 years ago, in 2003, that the Supreme Court decision of Lawrence v. Texas declared the criminalization of gay and lesbian sex unconstitutional. Up until 20 years ago, it was legal to arrest an LGBTQ plus person on the basis of who they had sex with. And for me, that's just absolutely appalling. because I was just entering high school at that time. And then in 2015, only 8 years ago, Obergefell v. Hodges was the Supreme Court decision that finally declared that same-sex marriage is a fundamental right. We haven't even hit a decade since that decision has been made. So where are we today? 8 years after Obergefell v. Hodges, there are still a lot of issues facing the LGBTQ plus community. The first one that I want to point out is the violence. Our transgender community and our drag queen community are under constant attack. And this is being done through anti-LGBTQ plus legislative bills. So far, year to date, there have been 491 anti-LGBTQ plus legislative bills introduced across the United States, and that's in local government, state government, and the federal government. There have been 3 introduced here in Pennsylvania alone. One of them focuses on transgender girls participating in sports. Another one of them is related to the teaching and banning of LGBTQ plus books. And I forget what the other one is off the top of my head, but I should be able to grab that by the end of this presentation. And through these bills being introduced and through all of the hateful rhetoric that happens in the media, people think it's okay to just go out and attack the transgender community. They think it's okay that there's something wrong with them and that they shouldn't exist. And that's just not okay. Conversion therapy is still a problem. It's still legal in Pennsylvania for conversion therapy to exist. There is not a law on the books banning it yet. So what that does is it takes children and sometimes adults through a very painful process of trying to erase their true feelings and tell them that it's wrong and just either beat it out of them. There's some very controversial therapies that are involved in conversion therapy. Overall, extremely harmful to the person that is going through it. LGBTQ plus parenting is still a current issue. My partner and I, we want to have kids, but we're not married. So in order for me, because she will be the one carrying, in order for me to have legal rights over that child, we either have to get married or I have to legally adopt the child. A straight couple doesn't have to go through that. You can be unwed and that person, both parents can be put on the birth certificate, no questions asked. But not all hope is lost, and it's not all negative. There are some bills going through the Pennsylvania House and Senate that are a good thing for the LGBTQ plus community. One of them being House Bill 300, the Freedom Act, seeking to make it illegal to discriminate in housing, credit, and employment on the basis of sexual orientation and gender identity. Currently in the state Senate, we have Senate Bill 474, which prohibits the denial of credit based on sexual orientation, gender identity, or expression. Senate Bill 370, which designates $2.5 million from the lottery fund to support an LGBTQ senior community grant program. Senate Bill 541, which requires insurance coverage for pre-exposure HIV medication. And Senate Bill 542, which requires insurance coverage for the expenses of any post-exposure HIV medication. So while those bills are positive things, those are bills that are in existence and have been introduced to the House and the Senate because deficiencies still exist legally for the LGBTQ plus community. And Drew, I don't know if you had anything else that you wanted to add on to that.
I think you just did an amazing job, and you are much more in tune with the political world than I am, all listing all of the bills and everything like that. So I think you did a great job.
Awesome. Then I'm going to toss it over to you for our current programming that we are doing to help support the community.
Absolutely. Yes. So in 2023, we have had so far quite a successful year, and we've gone through a pretty big transition over the last 8 to 10 months as far as our leadership and our board are concerned. And we've been able to further support our adult support group and our youth support group, which we are very happy to report have grown over the last 6 months. And they are something that we've had going now for a few years, and they just keep getting bigger and better. We have also now introduced an LGBTQIA plus business network and rainbow boxes, which are something we are giving to any business who is interested in having paperwork available for their LGBTQIA employees, and also employees who want to learn how to better communicate with, those that they work with who are part of the LGBTQIA community. We also are introducing something called Coffee with a Queer, which is something we're hoping to be able to do on a monthly basis throughout a bunch of different boroughs throughout Chester County, and picking, small businesses that are coffee shops where you can just come and get a coffee and hang out with the community and, meet people like yourself, or, if you're an ally and you wanted to come and just, be a part of the community, make more friends and grow in that aspect. We are also doing book crossing, which I think is really beautiful. We have a bunch of books that are focused on LGBTQIA topics or by LGBTQIA authors, and we're placing those throughout Chester County. And if you see it, there's a little note on it with our logo that says, "Hi, I'm not lost. I was hoping that you would find me." And the hope is that you'll find the book, you'll read the book, you'll learn something from someone, someone who's different than you. You'll read from their perspective, and then just how you found it, you'll release it back into the wild. And we now, as that has grown, have started teaming up with some independent bookshops as well, who are going to be making donations to keep that growing, which is really exciting. We've also introduced an LGBTQIA hiking group, which we just came to the decision on about 2 weeks ago. And that's the same thing. People, in your community, or if you're an ally who wants to get involved, it's just finding a like interest, which in this case, it's hiking. And it's just a way to get together and go out and build community. And then we also have an ally affinity group. They have been meeting at local libraries all throughout Chester County. And that's the same thing. It's once a month, and it's just allies getting together so they can have the conversations where, hey, this is a question I don't feel comfortable asking, and you can just have the hard conversations on how to be a better ally and better supporter of the LGBTQIA community in Chester County. And one other thing I will add that we are very proud to report, last weekend in downtown Phoenixville, we had the 2023 Chester County Pride Fest, and it was about double the size of our 2022 Chester County Pride Fest. So we had about 140 vendors, thousands of people coming to town, and it was just a really great day of celebration. And, whether you're a member of the community or you're just an ally, it was a very, very beautiful sight to see. And that's a little of what we've been working on.
Awesome. Thanks, Drew. So now, what does the future look like? Now that we have gotten past Pride Fest, we are going to be working on our strategic plan. And part of that is going to include these 5 key pillars. We want to start increasing our geographic awareness and programmatic support and impact throughout Chester County. Right now, we are doing a lot of work in Phoenixville. We're starting to do more work in Westchester, but it is our goal to make programs available throughout the county, because we understand that if you live down in Oxford, it's not always easy to get up to Westchester. It's sometimes even harder to get up to Phoenixville. So we want to make sure that we have our programs available throughout the county and that they're easily accessible. And we want to enhance the awareness about our organization and its programs and activities throughout the entire county. One of the ways that we're doing that is we are going to be partnering with local school district GSAs, gay straight clubs, and we are also going to start offering a GSA scholarship for outstanding participation in supporting the LGBTQ plus community to a graduating senior. And they don't have to use it towards a four-year college. They can be going on to a trade school as well, and we will still be giving them that scholarship. We want to increase our attendance and volunteer participation because ally participation is a very crucial pillar of the success of our organization, because it's my view as an out lesbian, and I know Drew shares this sentiment as an out gay man, we wouldn't be able to get a lot of the work done without our allies supporting us, because you don't have to be there to support us. You're choosing to be there to support us. And that means more than what we can explain. We also want to strengthen our corporate, foundation, and major donor relationships to be able to increase our resources and our increased support of our programs. The more support we get from corporations, foundations, and major donors, the more that we're going to be able to do for the LGBTQIA plus community in Chester County. And we really want to increase our outreach and advocacy activities, because without our politicians in locally advocating for non-discrimination ordinances in their townships and boroughs, without our LGBTQ plus friendly politicians in Harrisburg, without our LGBTQ plus friendly politicians in Washington, D.C., we're not going to make the progress that we need to be recognized as human beings. And that's something that we are going to be starting up, where our advocacy committee is going to have its very first meeting on Monday evening. So again, how do we get there? Partnerships, connecting with other nonprofits throughout Chester County that are LGBTQ plus allies, like the fund for, like Chester County History Center. It's important that we partner with other nonprofits who are friendly to the community so that we can expand our knowledge, we can get our name out there, and we can help support these other nonprofits as well. I'm very happy to be working with Blake and the fund. Very, very happy with the support that we've been receiving through them. Very happy about Gab and Girl Gov. They've been absolutely phenomenal. And then one of the partnerships that we just really started this year is with Chester County History Center. On Friday, June 23rd at 6 p.m., we are hosting a talk with Walter Nagel. If you don't know who Walter Nagel is, he is Bayard Rustin's partner. And if you don't know who Bayard Rustin is, highly recommend you Google him. He is a civil rights icon and was a really key driver behind the success of Martin Luther King Jr. And he was born in Westchester. With outreach, we are going to try to form an advisory board with representation from each geographic area of Chester County so that we can increase our representation. It's important to me that we have a voice from Coatesville, a voice from Kennett Square, from Oxford, from Phoenixville, Westchester, every part of Chester County. I want to make sure that everybody's voices are being heard. And through our advocacy, where we meet regularly with our elected officials to advance LGBTQ plus rights at the local, state, and federal levels.
Thank you so much for that. And I just want to remind everybody that you can enter in any questions in the Q&A box, and I will read them off. Thank you both to Carrie and Drew. Now we're going to talk a little bit about some of the information that's in the current blueprint report. Like I previously mentioned, the status from 2019. So in a post-COVID world, a lot of this has changed, and unfortunately, much of it has changed for the worse. So we acknowledge in the blueprint report that individuals who are community members of the LGBT plus community see higher rates of poverty. So when you compare transgender individuals, lesbian women to cisgender straight women, you see differences, lesbian women and cisgender straight being fairly comparable, but transgender individuals facing higher levels of poverty, and which of course means more food insecurity, higher rates of uninsured, and higher unemployment rates. With health and safety in the community, we see that lesbian women are less likely than straight women to receive preventative services for cancer. Lesbian and bisexual women are more likely than straight women to struggle with obesity, be overweight. Transgender women are more likely to not have health insurance and more likely to contract HIV and experience intimate partner violence, have mental health issues, and unfortunately complete suicide. Bisexual women have a higher risk of rape, violence, and stalking than lesbian and heterosexual women. So unfortunately, we are seeing higher levels of very concerning issues for women and individuals who identify as LGBTQ+. Again, this legislation, unfortunately, in the world of legislation, is outdated from our report. So still true, unfortunately, is that there are not any laws in PA that protect trans children and their parents from discrimination. We're seeing some really horrific bills coming out of, for example, Florida and Texas and other areas where there is not only an attack on the children, but there's an attack on the supportive families of those children. The PA Fairness Act would add gender identity expression and sexual orientation to Pennsylvania Human Rights Act. These are areas that, whether it's the local, state, or federal level, these are big differences that can be made. We have protected classes. We know race and religion, for example, are protected classes, but it's important to identify and acknowledge all of the protected classes, all of the individuals who deserve and need to be a protected class. So we have seen some local legislation, for example. I will cite my own school district, Phoenix LA School District. We added gender identity as a protected class in our district level policy. So from the local level up, we can absolutely make a difference in this area. This is the 21 state legislatures who have introduced laws that would prevent trans youth from accessing gender affirming medical care. I mean, we know that's increased. The previous stat that Carrie gave us, the number of bills just this year, and we're only halfway through this year, that have been introduced that would be extremely harmful, unfortunately, just continues to grow. So with all that in mind, we obviously don't want to feel doom and gloom. We want to think about what we can do and how we can be supportive, how allies can take action, how individuals who are members of the LGBTQ+ community can take action. So first and foremost is education. We can educate ourselves on situations we don't understand, lives we may not live. Carrie and Drew mentioned some of the wonderful work that they're doing in terms of the Coffee with a Queer. I have seen quite a few emails about courageous conversations. I don't know if that was that last item that you mentioned, or if that's an additional one, but ways that we can engage with individuals so that we can learn and make more informed choices. We can support programs and nonprofits that support the needs of individuals who are LGBTQ+ community members. So looking at the LGBT Equality Alliance, looking at HRC, looking at all these different wonderful organizations around us and engaging with them, whether it's donating, whether it's volunteering, whether it's participating in their programs as an ally or as a member of the LGBTQ community. And finally, it's so important, Carrie mentioned advocacy, goes from the local to the federal level, engaging with our elected officials and engaging with individuals who are influential and advocating for the rights of members of the LGBTQ population and their loved ones. I have to throw in their loved ones, especially when we're talking about the families who are also being targeted for supporting their children. So anything we can do to, in an informed way, advocate and support the rights and the needs of individuals in the LGBTQ community is greatly beneficial. And sometimes it's small steps, but those small steps can lead to much larger change. And if we all work together, we're going to reach that change much sooner. So finally, that concludes our presentation. I do want to make sure we have some time for questions, so please feel we have plenty of time for questions. If you have any questions, please put them in the Q&A. And while you're hopefully typing, this series is monthly. We are taking off for July and August because a lot of folks go on vacation, but we will restart in September, and we will be honoring National Hispanic Heritage Month. You see at the bottom, there is a link. You can register for that. If you go to our website, thefundcc.org, you go to the events tab. We have all of our upcoming Blueprint Zoom lunch registration links on there. So we will have September through November, the third Thursday of the month at 12 p.m. So please feel free to do that. And at this point, hopefully you can see in the chat, I realized there was an error earlier. Thank you to the person who commented, but I think now you should be able to find the form in the chat. So if you get a chance to fill that out, that would be great. Do you have a question here for Carrie or Drew or both, whomever? Could you please give some examples for how best to support someone, whether it's a family member, a friend, a child, a partner, discloses that they are a member of the LGBT community? What's the most supportive way to react?
Honestly, tell them you love them, because that is the most powerful statement that you could make to them in that very moment, that you love them. It doesn't change how you feel about them, and that you want to learn more and do what you can to be supportive, and ask them what they would want out of that support, because everybody's support is different. Everybody wishes for different things. So ask them what they need from you.
Yes. And just to follow up on that, when someone tells you who they are, trust that they know who they are way better than you ever could, even if it's someone that you've known your entire life, someone you've loved your entire life. That's an issue that you'll see. You know, someone will come out as gay, as bisexual, as transgender, and you know, it's people will be like, well, are you sure? Absolutely. Trust that they know themselves much better than you could ever fathom. So yes. And then, like you said, Carrie, just love, unabashedly love. That's, I think, something the entire world could do a little better at. Just, yeah, spreading that.
Great, thank you. And we have another question here. How do you deal with LGBTQIA+ discrimination and prejudice in the workplace, especially when you yourself are part of the community and are concerned about backlash?
Wow. I will say it absolutely depends on the employer. A lot of large corporations do have anti-discrimination policies. If it's a smaller business, I would say get us involved, ask us questions, because I think our rainbow boxes would be a really helpful place to start for the business to learn how to be a more welcoming environment. And because they may not know where to start, you know, trying to give some people the benefit of the doubt in this. But if there's really serious issues going on, you know, engage us. We do luckily have a lawyer on our board that we can ask him how we could go about legalities in the workplace. So reach out to us. We are more than happy to help get you connected to the right place.
Absolutely. And more on that as well is part of our LGBTQIA business initiatives we're going to have resources on our website, not only for how best companies can handle things like that, or an employee who is facing that discrimination can handle that, but also a list of corporations who are, you know, happy and excited to hire members of the LGBTQIA community. So we'll have a list of safe spaces for the community that they can go and know, oh, if I apply here, I won't face that discrimination. Or if, you know, from a coworker, I did, that I would be protected.
Mm-hmm.
There is a follow-up to that question. So the individual is in a blue-collar workspace, not in Chester County. So can they still reach out to you all, like go onto the website and then reach out to you all for support?
Yeah, absolutely. You don't have to reside in Chester County. You don't have to work in Chester County. We are more than happy to assist the best that we can.
Yes. All I was going to come on and say is I second what Carrie said.
Great, thank you. And thank you for that vulnerable question from that individual.
Absolutely.
Another question, and this is my own question. So there is a lot of things happening out in the world right now that are very out in public. We see very public forms of hate. And as an ally and a potential bystander, can you speak to the best, if you're a bystander in a situation, can you speak to the best way to respond? So just thinking about it from the frame of my visceral reaction is to get in the middle and, I go mama bear, but that I don't want to, that might not be the best answer. So I would love to hear your thoughts on how to engage as a bystander if you're witnessing something.
Drew, I'll let you start off this one.
Yeah, absolutely. I would say, first and foremost, make sure that you would be safe in this situation, because that's the biggest thing. And especially if you see people just spewing hate, all you can do is spew love. That's always kind of like kill them with kindness, is generally my go-to. For example, we had one single protester at Pride, one single person. And what did we do? We gave her water because it was 80 degrees outside. There was not a cloud in the sky. The sun was beating down. And all we could do was, hey, you're here. We can give you water and make sure that you get through the day. And now if you do see someone actively hurting another person, it's definitely, best to, as long as you would be safe as well, don't be afraid to get in a little good trouble is what I always tend to think. I'm also a very outspoken person, so I don't take too well to that. So maybe that's not the best advice, and maybe Carrie has some better advice there as well. But it's always better to do something and to fight hatred with love than to think I could have done something.
Yeah, I would say don't be silent. Obviously, the safety of everybody involved is paramount. If it's turning into a physically unsafe space, call the police and get them involved. But if it's a shouting match, just speak up, because hatred thrives when you're silent. And we can't forget that. For every person that doesn't speak up when they see somebody being harassed or spoken down to just for being who they are, that's when it starts to become dangerous. And these people who are spewing that hatred think that it's okay. A really good example right now is local school boards. If you are at a school board meeting and somebody gets up there and starts to spew hatred towards the LGBTQ plus community, go up there right behind them and tell them you disagree. Right now in Westchester School District, there is a charter school that is trying to get approval that is extremely anti-LGBTQ plus. And the more people that show up to those school board meetings and say, no, we don't accept this in our community, the better, because the people who spew that hatred are very loud. We need to be louder than them.
Thank you. I want to note in the chat for anybody who's interested in reaching out, Carrie added the email address. You can do info@lgbteachesco.org, which you'll also find on their website if you Google them. Can you recommend, I know you talked about the book program that you have that sounds amazing. Would you both mind throwing out there a couple books that you would recommend for individuals to read, whether it's from the perspective of, whether it's educational, just any kind of book recommendation.
Oh my goodness, we could go on that for the last 20 minutes of this.
Yes, we could.
Oh gosh, Drew, I'll let you go first because I can't pick one right now.
Yeah. So I am unabashedly a fluff reader. I love a good popcorn book. And two that I absolutely love, because another thing that I will say I love in queer media in general lately, there has been a transition from, the movies like Brokeback Mountain that were beautiful but had a heartbreaking ending. We are getting more into LGBTQ joy, which is amazing. So two books that I would highly suggest if you've never read The Seven Husbands of Evelyn Hugo, it's brilliant. It's very, very good. If you have read Daisy Jones and the Six or saw Daisy Jones and the Six, it's by the same author. And then I also really love Red, White, and Royal Blue. And that is what happens when the son of the president of the United States falls in love with the Prince of England. And it's just, wonderful and deals a lot with the pressures of feeling like you need to fit something. Both of these books cover that, where society tells you to be one thing and you just have to follow your heart and be who you are. And both of them are going to be turned into movies, Red, White, and Royal Blue sooner than Evelyn Hugo, but they are both coming. So those would be my first two suggestions. And I'm sure there are way more, and those are both fun to read. So
I will recommend a few classics that aren't as recent. Oranges Aren't the Only Fruit is one of the earlier books about lesbians. It's a novel. I highly recommend it. It's very, very good. I think I finished it in a day. It just had me real page turner. Stone Butch Blues and I think it's Drag King Dreams, by noted trans activist Leslie Feinberg. Those two books got me through my journey of self-discovery back in high school. A really good young adult one is I think it's called Kissing Kate. And then if you want to learn some information about queer history, The Tinderbox is not a happy story. It is a sad story about a gay club in New Orleans burning to the ground and nobody doing a damn thing about it. My gosh, I'm blanking on the titles. Give me a second.
Yep. I also just read The Gunkle, which is about a gay uncle who is left to take care of his brother's two children while his brother is getting sober. And it has a lot to do with dealing with grief and dealing with things that, as the LGBTQ community, there are questions like, can I have kids? Would I be good at that? Because so much of society has, been heteronormative as far as parenting goes, and things like that are changing, which is beautiful. But that's a really great book as well. Again, a novel, but
And
it's
there's
also running.
Sorry.
Oh no, I was going to say.
Sorry, go ahead.
No, you're fine. You're fine.
Just one of the comments, somebody suggested The House of Cerulean Sea
Yes.
for young adults.
Yep. That is actually on my short list. I'm hoping to read that by the end of the summer. Yes. And then the one book I was also going to say, I have not read. I read it a while ago, but I'm Running with Scissors is a memoir. And that's a lot about queer trauma. Also Call Me by Your Name. That got big because the movie came out, but the book is stunning. And there's a lot there. A father-son relationship where, he has a really beautiful conversation with his kid. Like, I love you no matter what, be who you are. And that's just another beautiful reinforcement that the queer community needs often. So.
And then one more for all of the history nerds. Eleanor and Hick, The Love Affair That Shaped a First Lady by Susan Quinn. It's a thick book, but it's really eye-opening about early queer love with somebody very famous to us.
Thank you. Just want to leave another moment for other questions from the audience. I do really appreciate everybody for joining us today. Thank you so much. This point, we will conclude our presentation. I want to thank Carrie and Drew again for joining us from the LGBT Equality Alliance. We'll check them out. And thank you again. Hope you all have a great week and a good summer. And I look forward to seeing you all next September with our next upcoming Zoom presentation. Have a great one, everyone.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.